Alright guys, we are back with another OPO7 Masterclass. This is with Alex. Alex and I met at Perfect Rares at a local, and he destroyed me with Perona. I thought it was so cool that he's rocking Perona. Of course, it's still a good deck, but it's not what people consider the top 4, and I'd just love to hear more from him and share your thoughts. So Alex, welcome. How are you? And tell us more.
Hey, all right. Do you want me to just start with I guess the what the goal of the deck is and my thoughts on why I chose each card?
This next hour is all about you, your mentality, your game plan. I want to hear everything.
Okay. So yeah, basically the same thing. So what I've got is Perona with the Wano package. Last set I tried her with the Navy stuff, so we're talking, brand new and everything else that includes. And I thought it was really good at filling the trash. But honestly, probably just if you're gonna play Perona last set, just play Moria is way easier. But I've always been a green main, so I'm pretty familiar with Wano. So seeing that people are doing, you can be my samurai, I thought that was really cool. That's why I picked it up. Um, so my list, I think, was a combination of two Japanese flagship lists. Um, Mostly around Hiyori. I think some are using Mountain God, and then just a mixture of top end. So I think the top end for Perona right now, you could do Sabo, Dofi, Moria is a must, and then I think Isha was another option I saw. But I think after a little bit of testing, I have found that all I really care about seeing is Moria and Dofi. I think Zoro was also a potential include, but I decided against it. Just for the sake of consistency with some of the other cards. So starting the top left, Hiyori. You could run this at 3 or 4. Basically, she lets you play a 5 or less Wano from hand, other than Kazuki Hiyori, and then draw a card. So you can bring her back with Moria. You can use her to specifically to bring out Ryuma. I also use one of Mountain God. So those are basically your 5 targets. That's kind of why I'm running it at 3. I didn't really have the space to run more targets for Hiyori. I think if I had 4 Mountain God or something like that, I would be doing that. But all I really care about is using Hiyori to get, let's just say, like in a situation where I have Ryuma in hand, no Ryumas in trash, and I have a Hiyori in trash or something like that. I don't know. And I want to play, Moria. I can use Moria to take Hiyori out of the trash, play her to the field, and then get Hiyori to play Ryuma. It's like weird combos like that. It also lets you delay like the KO effect. So let's just say you want to do on your Moria turn, you want to hit a 7 cost. So you can do Hiyori plus Toy Soldier. Do the Toy Soldier effect first. So you subtract 3, and then you do leader effect into Hiyori plus Ryuma. Um, this lets you hit higher, and a lot of the times you can't really do a lot of on plays. So Tsuru works, but if you're trying to hit something higher with Toy Soldier, with Moria, that's the best way to do it that I found. Moving on, one of Mountain God, I think he's a cool card. 7K is really good right now, just versus RP Law. Um, Playing this turn 2, pretty much it can definitely screw over an RP Law player because they're scrambling to get rid of that, and then every other turn after that, you're playing Ryuma, you're playing a blocker, you're playing something, just developing board that they have to answer. Izo, good 2K, basically. That's we've been playing this game for 7 sets now, I think. Um, yeah, it's just searchable 2K that rest of 4 costs. It's amazing. Momo to search out the rest of the Wano package. Nothing to be said there. 4 of Dofi, I landed on because I think at the PR local specifically, for whatever reason, it's Sam, Justin, I think a few other people are picking up Enel, and it's insanely hard to deal with. It's like yellow is probably Perona's worst matchup because she just can't deal with the large bodies they play. Um, so I think I have yet to beat an Enel in tournament, but I've gotten to practice with Justin, and I think I have a much more solid game plan going into it. And 10 drop Dofi is part of that.
Like the moment you mentioned about the Hiyori and Ryuma in hand, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so good. You play the soldier, and then like
Yeah.
get Ryuma off Gecko Moria is just to play the Hiyori from trash and then play the Ryuma.
For 10 Dawn, you can kill a 10 cost because you do Toy Soldier, destroy something. This is also get Toy Soldier in trash. So if on 10 Dawn you play Toy Soldier, -3 something, Moria to do the combo I talked about, but now you've subtracted them down to 4 from 10. So you can hit. That's the only way to hit really large bodies is with
Oh,
Toy Soldier.
like that's so good because a lot of decks just can't go over Enel. Like Enel's just a gatekeeper. So like the fact that
Yeah,
you have this and like you can even get rid of a 10 cost. You know, if people aren't aware, Perona has the ability to either rest a 4 cost or give one of your opponents -1 cost. So that's such a good utilization of the leader effect alongside these cards that I think I was just mind blown.
yeah. It's kind of hard. It's pretty combo heavy because you have to see one Hiyori, one soldier, and one Ryuma in hand, which is hard to do. I think I think that's one of the weaknesses. Just it's inconsistent at doing some things like that. Ryuma is basically the star, one of the stars of the deck, I guess. He's the only way that I have to KO, but he's searchable 2 times. Yeah, we have both Otama and Momo. They both search him, and he's playable from Moria. So he just does everything you would want to see in a deck like this. Also, just the four cost 6K stat line's freaking insane. Yeah, no, I think that's basically it. I think the on KO effect has come up a few times versus Luchi. They can't do the Spandine combo with it with Luchi. Basically, just if they do it, Luchi comes out rested. Ryuma gets so much value in that matchup. Otama, this is the OPO7 card, right? I think this is one of the only OPO7s I'm running.
Yeah, yeah, the
Um,
OPO7 2
yeah, yeah. So this is basically what I was waiting for last set. It's just search Wano, and it's a 2K. It's I think I guess I'll talk about it later when I get to You Can Be My Samurai, but it's also the fact that these cards that once they're played they stop getting value. This deck doesn't really have to worry about that because Toy Soldier, Hiyori, and also Otama, they all benefit from You Can Be My Samurai. Tsuru, another 2K. This one's -2 on something. Then you can do whatever else you need to do with either leader effect or Ryuma or something like that. I chose Tsuru over Toy Soldier just because I thought having the 1 cost to -2 something. This hits a 6K. There's not like it's not like 6K is an important number, but to me, if there was a 5-drop blocker and I want to be able to hit it, I now have 8 ways to do so once we include Belmare. Belmare is, I think, something I saw towards the end of Japan running OPO7, and my friend put me on this. Belmare is basically a 1-drop 1K, but the ability is you may rest this character, give up to one of your opponent's characters -1 during this turn, and then your leader or one of your characters +1K. So, I guess where to start. This card is, I think, overperformed insanely. I started with 3. I think when I played you, I was at 3. After using it for 2 days, I realized that this card should be at 4 because it absolutely deserves it. The -1 basically lets you swing into Black Yellow Luffy's 5-drops, any of them. Um, it also makes the turn 3 instant play of 5-drop starter deck Luffy, the one that minus is alive +3K, puts it in range of Ryuma immediately. So you can just answer it right off the bat with Belmare. It also lets you get past Luchi's like Sabo blocker, stuff like that. Any 5-drop blocker is just a victim for Belmare. And then the plus 1K is also amazing because, let's just say your early game, you're trying to play the mind game of like, oh, do I have Ryuma in hand? You can do, you know, Belmare, pump up the leader, -1 on a 5-drop blocker. You rest the blocker and you swing 6K into it. They can give you the card and then you Ryuma it, or they think that you have Ryuma and they just give up the blocker anyways. It does so much. I've done also won games like that where they put up Sabo or they put up Rebecca then Sabo. Like, oh, my board's protected, I'm safe. Belmare plus leader effect on Sabo, and then Izo'd the Rebecca went for a game like that. That was something I've seen before too. It's come up twice, so I'm pretty sure I can consistently do that. Yeah, Belmare is amazing. And then even if you're doing it like middle of the game too, you're not going for lethal. You're just you're trying to get value. It turns into a blocker. They have to clear it. It gets way too much value for them not to clear it. Let's see. Oh, next is Borsalino. This is I was looking for 4-drops. I think this is pretty much a no-brainer because it's 1K counter, got an amazing stat line, and then can't be KO'd by effects. So Perona already has a good matchup into Moria and Luchi. This kind of just seals the deal where if you play it early, you're chilling. They can't. It's going to be there the whole game. and then it can be always be brought back by Moria in a pinch. Next up was Sabo. Sabo is a way to filter your hand. I I think the way I've been playing it, the deck can feel pretty dead. At some points, like or like you just need to draw into your Dofis or your Morias, something like that. This is one of the two ways you mostly see a lot of your cards. I was also running this when I was testing Zoro. Basically, the idea was you play 9-drop Zoro as early as you can, or you play something else as bait for removal, like Rygo or something like that. And then you basically just play whatever the thing you want to stick, and then you play Sabo right after. And then by that point it should be safe, hypothetically. That was the idea. Finding that combo in games was a little tough. I don't know if that was like something I needed. I tried to. That's why I'm going this route. It's all a process, but Sabo I think deserves a spot at 4 of, and he's just a good card in order to see more cards and then also fill your trash strategically. Toy Soldier I've touched on a bit. Basically, send him to the trash, give something -3. Useful for getting rid of 7Ks. I think the only time this has mattered so far, because not many decks are running 7K, or not 7K, 7 costs. It was, I think, the Foxy matchup, weirdly enough. They run a lot of 7 costs in there. I saw all my soldiers and all my Ryumas. I was so happy because I did not want to lose to a Foxy. Yeah, so there was let's see, I think 7 cost Kid and then also the Foxy character. Both are pretty scary. I managed to remove 2 turns in a row with just Toy Soldier and Moria, so it wasn't that bad. 4 of Moria. This card I think everyone knows is basically a must have at 4 in every black deck until either they ban it or they power creep it out somehow. But the amount of value you get in Perona, can't be understated. It's so good. Also, 8 cost 9K body. It's insane. The last card I've got is You Can Be My Samurai. I've seen this run at 3. I've seen it run at 4. I've seen it run at 2. I think if you're gonna play the Wano package, you have to run Wano, or you have to run You Can Be My Samurai, because what's the point? Plus, Samurai just synergizes so well with Soldier, with Tsuru, with Otama, with Hiyori, with Izo if you've already played it. You have targets for it. And then, it just means that your opponent can basically not leave any, quote unquote dead cards on the field. They've got value, but they can get more value because at any point I could play Samurai and draw 2 cards. I haven't done this in tournament yet, or even live yet, but on the sim I have gone up to like 14 cards because I saw all my Samurai early and my opponent just wasn't willing to clear my Otama. So I was just playing it every opportunity I could, and I was super safe. The reason I'm running it at 3 right now instead of 4 is because I got super bricked with basically 3 of them in hand. I think there were 5 cards in hand, 3 of them were Samurai, and I didn't have a board, so I couldn't play them either. And there's no trigger, there's nothing you can do, they're just stuck in your hand. So yeah, I just thought to myself, there's probably the only times I really want to see it is probably early. Late game, I want to be playing my Dofis. I want to be doing something with Moria. I don't know. I probably want to see it less late. So that's the reasoning for dropping it from 4 to 3. But it is the main draw engine outside of your searchers. But because it is a genuine +1, and that's basically where I've landed for now.
Man, this deck looks very, very, not only well thought out, it looks very tight. It looks like everything here has its purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And, people might be like, oh, he only runs 1 Yamasan or Mountain God. But in reality, you have so many searchers and you have so many draw powers that, early on, you probably don't want to see too many of these later in the game instead of playing your Ryumas and Sabos or Baromera combos. So, I think everything in this deck, number-wise, just seems perfect. This is well-crafted. And it seems like you have a game plan for most of these leaders out there.
Yeah, it's 07, so you can't really tech for everything. You kind of choose your battles. I'm teching for PR, which might be a mistake because I know if I go to a regional, it won't look like that. But I don't really plan on taking Perona, I think, to a regional. It's just a deck I really enjoy playing, and I've tried to workshop a lot. I think. Yeah, I think with the card draw you have, I think seeing Mountain God is pretty reasonable. Even opening it, I'm not mad about it because I know that nobody likes seeing a vanilla once it's played. It's like, oh, why do you want a vanilla when you're building your deck? But when they see the vanilla, they're like, "Ah, crap, that stat line's insane."
Yeah, the law player is like, dang it. The
Yeah.
Luchi's like, all right, am I really gonna? Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the Luchis we played the same day I played you. I did turn 2 going second, turn 2 Hiyori Mountain God, turn 3 Sabo. So they couldn't remove it, and he got basically a whole turn out of use. And then by that point, I was playing Morias. So it can be pretty oppressive once it gets going, I think.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like you as a 4 life leader, like the fact that you can just swing 7K, they're gonna bring themselves down to 3 or 4 really fast, and suddenly
Yeah,
their whole advantage against you is gone. Like you
yeah,
built that one turn early with Hiyori, and the combinations you mentioned for Hiyori, like I don't think a lot of, like when this came out, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I mean myself included. I was just like, oh yeah, I can play my banished 5 cost Yamato, yay! But in reality, the pros like yourself were like, oh wait, Hiyori combo Ryuma out of not in trash. I can just combo this. I was like, oh my gosh! And then coming with the you can be my samurai, like the value there just makes so much sense. So I think a
yeah.
lot of people are gonna get the minds blown seeing this deck.
Seeing like I think it's what is that 4 plus 2 plus 1. So for 7 Dawn, you do Hiyori plus Toy Soldier, tap them both, and they're trash effects, right? They're activate main trash this card.
Oh yeah.
So they don't, it doesn't matter if they're tapped. You get so much value trashing them after using Samurai. It's great. I think I've hit it a few times. It definitely is a combo you can reproduce. Um, but I've kind of I've tweaked the ratio so that I care less about the combo and more about like having consistent cards elsewhere, specifically with like top end.
I think another thing is, the Dofi and the Morias are not searchable. So the fact that you have well, most people rely on their Sambos to find like their higher ends. The You Can Be My Samurai combination, like the fact that you can play this several times, I think you just have like I take it like you see these every game. Like there's never a game where you don't see your 10 or 8 drop.
Generally, yeah. I mean, I have bottom decked like multiple Dofis with one Momo search, and that sucks.
Oh yeah.
Or you bottom deck yeah, but like that's gonna happen. I think we all know that's gonna happen at some point. Um, you do search a lot though, so it's potential that you can go all the way around. Um, Especially if you're like recycling. So you use Moria to replay an Otama. You can get you can you can go full all the way around, and I think the numbers were like 19 targets for Otama, 23 for Momo, and generally that means you don't whiff even if you're searching with that card every turn.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, these don't like a lot of those black decks, the Renews or all those cards, they trash the card. So like the Luchis are like, oh crap, both my Morias are in the trash or something. Half my
Yeah,
Morias. But in this, you just put it to the bottom of the deck. You're constantly searching. You're constantly like getting extra value. So yeah, the fact that you don't like trash it, and the fact that you can actually filter through, I think is great. And combo with your Sabos. I mean, all in all, I'm just very impressed by this deck.
yeah. No, I think it definitely has some really good matchups. Both I think before the consensus was Perona does really well into Moria. I think that still holds true. Luchi's a little harder because it can go a little bit wider, a little bit quicker. Because I think there's that one Moria play where they get like 4 bodies all at once. Yeah, it's the matter of like how well you do into RP Law and Enel. I think that's going to decide how well you do as Perona.
That's interesting because I know that with Luchi they have the Spandine and there's also the Rebecca's. Some people might be curious. I mean, I guess that makes sense because you have a lot of green here. But you mentioned that you're a green player. Like that
Yeah.
was what you played before. What brought you to play Perona over like a Bonnie or over like some of the other options?
Okay, so I started the game basically playing Kid for let's see, basically through OPO4. I played Supernova Kid set 1, Supernova and Film in set 2, and then basically Film from set 3 through 4, and I was pretty successful. I think 2 tops at Treasure Cups. Never a regional, unfortunately, but I'm not the best player or whatever, but for a Film Kid, I think that was pretty good. But I really liked Kid back then. I was basically a Film Kid main. I tried Isho, the original, the OG green black leader. I tried to cook it. He's really bad. I think he didn't really have the support he needed at the time, and then I think yeah, I don't know. It's that damn 5 or less just wasn't as good. And then we're pretty removal heavy right now, so it's not like a lot of your cost 5s are safe. It's he didn't scratch the itch that I needed. And then Perona has access to the same card pool, but her leader effect is just so much better.
Yeah. No,
I guess yeah.
like your matchup spread, like at the time, Moria was just like the main leader, so it's good that you have a Perona to be able to tackle those. But like with the OPO7 beta, like you mentioned, there were some leaders that you're concerned about. Could you talk about, amongst the meta picks, like what are your matchups like? What are your concerns? What is your game plan for those? So
Okay.
we'll start with your counter green, your Bonnie.
Okay, Bonnie, pretty dang tough. I've played 2 so far. Let me think. I think if the Bonnie is choosing to use 8 cost kid, it's going to be a very uphill battle. Basically, if that kid plays out a Rosinante with his effect, you don't really have a way to get rid of both at the same time. You're basically, Soprano is basically a remove once per turn deck. I know, like, Luchi or Moria can pull off multiple removals, but you can't really hit both. You have to hit you just basically get one. So if the kid is protected in any way, you can't really hit it. And so like that's already tough off the bat. The other thing is if the Bonnie player plays Zoro, you have to answer it that turn or you die because you're a 4 life leader. Blockers tend to not matter in that situation because they're just going to swing over. And it's just really hard in that way. Plus, she's going to rest your blocker at any point if you played it earlier. So you're probably not going to have a blocker at that point either if they play Zoro. So yeah, that's kind of where that's like those are the main concerns I have. I think the Bonnie I played, he was on 10 drop Dofi. He was on. I'm trying to think. He was definitely on Hodies. He was. I what my plan was to put him in a situation where it would be risky to swing for it, but also if he played Hody, he would probably die. I was being very aggressive up until that point. Basically, wasn't playing my blockers until like the very end, or until like it would be more advantageous to do so. Early on, I was going like Mountain God. I was Ryumaing pretty much everything. And I'd spent the latter half of the game building a taller board. So my Dofi and I think at the time it was Sabo, not Dofi. This deck isn't really tech for Bonnie, but if you have I guess more Bonnie heavy local, or if you want to tech for Bonnie specifically, I would run Sabo. Sabo is basically your answer to a lot of the harder. What do you call it? I guess it's an answer to green basically.
You mean the 8 cost Sabo?
8 cost Sabo, yeah. It's trash 1, KO a 5 and a 3. Yeah. Another good one I think is Isho. Isho does well in matchups where it's slower. This is 8 cost Isho.
Yeah.
He rips 2 away, and I think by nature Bonnie will have the cards in hand that you will be able to rip it away. And almost no one is sure what Perona runs, so their hand size tends to get a little big. So that was like the reasoning for why I would include Isho. But the list was already super tight. I didn't have room, so I chose. If I see a Bonnie, I'm gonna try to play Morias. I'm gonna try to play Dofis. I'm gonna remove what I can, and I'm just gonna have to accept it if they beat me. Because like I think that's just how 07 goes. Is you just have to accept it when a matchup's bad.
No, that's very fair. I mean, like the thing about Bonnie is, with her leader ability, because you swing so like tall rather than wide, do you feel like her resting ability is detrimental, or can you kind of work around that?
Early game, I set up Mountain God, just so that like the only thing they could rest was my leader, and yeah, there's not much you can do. You play around it when you can. Yeah, there's not really a whole lot you can do other than like make the attacks that you do want to make matter. I think that was just the way that I went about it.
So, another thing also I'm curious is like it seems like with Bonnie, she has a lot of like 5 and 6 cost characters, like her Cavendish or Basil Hawkins. So like that just seems like a really big like, especially if they like KO your Ryuma, it seems like they have a lot of ways to work around. So like their costs are so high that they're fine KOing your Ryuma. Like so they rest it and then they swing at it. So that just seems like another uphill battle to face as well, because like they don't really play too many small bodies apart from like their blockers, and then of course they can have like searchers, but you want to get rid of their like main bodies. So
Bonnie Yeah, it's I mean, it's yes and no. Basil, I think, just beats any deck that's reliant on removal. So Perona, it's probably best if you just rest him and then try to swing past him. Cavendish is not a problem. Like I said, like Belmare is the anti 5 cost, and that's what gets me like my Rima to have value. Um yeah, it's like it's not ideal to let Ryuma die, but you can always bring him back later, and he is a threatening body. 6K, and they're gonna want to rest something else. So, you're gonna get to swing with him eventually.
No, that's very true. And I think that the Belmare with the plus 1000, it goes over a lot of those blockers that are higher in value. So yeah, that works. And of course, I think a Roge is 4 costs, I'm thinking.
Yes. Yes. So Arouge, I definitely think the Bonnie shouldn't be playing. I've seen them play it just so I would use my leader effect and then KO it, but on curve it's just it feels like a bad idea, and I've seen that before.
Nice. All right, so now that we covered the main green leader, we're going to go down the list to blue. What about Doflamingo?
I'm trying to think. I know the deck lists for Dofis right now. I know like Jimbei into anything is scary. Jimbei into Weevil is insane. I think always prioritize the Weevil and then just get rid of him if you can. Like with Rima, right? Because you hit at the number that the Dofi player doesn't like, right? You hit at four cost, for basically everything. Um,
No, you're right, because a lot of his units
yeah,
are like baseline 4 or like they don't go too high.
yeah. I'm looking through my notes because I did take notes on like what I think you should do in the matchup. I think what I said originally was because you're both trying to get to late game to play your tall boys.
Yeah.
Um, Going early game, if they do the combo for Jimbei into something, um, Jinbei's going to come out tapped. The other one's going to come out standing. You tap the other one, KO it, especially if it's like a Weevil because he's at 6K. You get more value there, and then you just swing into the rested one. I guess the goal would probably be to try to gas out the Dofi, which can be dangerous because they'll mess you up. Um, because they're swinging 7K every turn. If they build a bigger board, if they play the removal event, any of that stuff, you're in serious trouble there. And then your Perona's also half black, right? So she wants stuff in the trash, and any bottom decking is generally bad news.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then what's the top end? I think they run Kaido, right? The draw for Kaido.
the draw.
Yeah. I don't know if it's worth just holding Toy Soldier, Ryuma, and Moria in hand for the combo I talked about. See it, great, it's there, but um, probably would be best to put the Dofi in a position where it's probably not a great idea for them to draw for.
Yeah.
I think that's about all I got.
No, that's true because I've heard a lot of people say like I mean a lot of people know this too. Like if you're going for his board, he's just gonna outvalue you. He's just gonna outsummon.
Yeah.
He's gonna Jimbei. He's gonna summon, draw a card. But if you're swinging at life, especially if you have like higher end swings, and then say for example you're swinging so fast at him, he goes for your board, he puts it in the trash, or if he bottoms X, like the 7 cost event's good, but like it costs all 7 Dawn. So if he bottoms X 2. At that point, if he's at 2 life, it's like he's just risking it that you don't, bring him down to 1 or bring him down. So I can see the value there, but ultimately, yeah.
No, there is potential just to outvalue and play board. You just have to see more Ryumas. It's probably dependent on like what you do see versus the Dofi player. But Ryumas are a must. I would mulligan for those.
Would you go first or second against Dofi? Would you say?
That's a good question. I think just taking first just to steal curve because Dofi on curve is so scary. I mean, Perona loves second. That's the thing, right?
And one of the reasons why I asked too, because like is Dofi's first more dangerous or is Perona's second more dangerous?
Honestly, I would take first, but like I said, I need to do more testing on this, and I don't really have a Dofi player in my group, so I haven't been able to test it yet.
No, you're good. Like that's the thing about like OPO7. There's so many leaders to account for. Like it's not like okay, what do we do against Katakuri, Whitebeard, and like Sakazuki, and like there's a crap ton of leaders. So it's fun to kind of brainstorm these things because one of the things I enjoy is breaking the meta. And with a deck like this, like there's gonna be hard matchups, like you mentioned with the bottom deck, your cards that you want to see in trash. But at the same time, if they're not expecting a Perona, you might catch them off guard. They might be like, oh wait, crap, what do I do?
For sure. People, I mean, yeah, for sure. I think some people aren't expecting at least maybe a few cards in here. Like Belmare caught some people off guard, when I was playing it last.
Yeah, man. Oh wait, actually, odd question because we're talking about blue. Perona suffer from a 4 cost pudding.
Yes, if I just played Samurai, it's
Oh,
like
true.
the card draw potential is there, but also like there's just a good chance that you get a better hand from putting an effect anyways. It depends. You can play around it though, for sure.
Nice. All right, so let's go down to our next one, which is Boa Hancock blue. Same, but different.
Yeah, I think it's slightly slower, which means Piranha's gonna have a better time. Definitely take second because you want to stop the Boa on curve, and then it's just one Suru and Ryuma to KO, so I think it's not that bad. So have to see more blue players to actually know for sure. But I think just because she's slower and less aggressive than Dofi, it's going to be an easier time.
Yeah, and like realistically too, when you're at these tournaments, you're not going to see 2 Boa Hancocks. You might see 1 at most, but like even then, a lot of people won't see Boa Hancock. I feel like you definitely want to see Boa over Dofi though.
100%. I feel way more comfortable seeing any Boa.
Let's go down to other meta picks. I skipped over the reds. We might as well bite the bullet now.
Yeah.
RP Law.
Let's see. This is, I think, a lot of decks talk about gassing out RP Law. I think Piranha's probably the best at doing it.
Oh.
Because, even if they see Reiju and they see all that other stuff, you can kind of you can outdraw them. They're going to be bottom decking left, right? I think my opponent on it was probably Sunday. They saw 5 of their Gordons / Raise Max, and I still won. I think I did see all my Ryumas, which I think was pretty lucky. But I was also searching nonstop with Otama, Momo, all that stuff. So I searched a lot. I also did see Mountain God on curve, which was crazy. Other things that were good. I was able to KO a 5-cost blocker kid with Belmare and Ryuma. That was really good. And I still got to swing 6k. And I think they played one. They only saw one Reiju, or they only had the ability to play one Reiju. But it was, I think, Reiju and Queen. It was a lot of trading back and forth. But because of Belmare and like the other -1s I was seeing, I think I had to play a Tsuru. But I basically just, their hand was dead at a certain point. I knew it. They just ran out of options.
Yeah. Your
Yeah.
leader ability, just to be able to rest ending 4 costs. Oh my gosh. I feel the pain. It's so good.
Yeah. I think I played another game as a friendly, and that one that was after I picked up Dofi, because I think originally it was Sabo, and Sabo will mess up a RP Law, but I was using Dofi because of the number of Enel players that were at PR, and I unfortunately ran into a Law player, and I think what ended up happening was I used Leader Effect to rest a what's his face Bon Clay, just so I could keep it tapped with Dofi. I just didn't because you can't leave him standing when you play a big body like that.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, so I think that was. You can also bait out what do you call it? You can bait out blockers. Just swing with leader. If they block, and then you just play Dofi on top of it. You don't need to use your leader effect on that one. So that was just something to keep in mind, is you give them a real easy block and maybe they bite.
Yeah, that's interesting because a lot of times when Law plays their characters, they're just they're on the board and you're just staring them down because they're not rested, right? But you can essentially KO 1 or 2. Make sure that you get the swings down. Make sure like the 2s are just worthless because you rest, like you mentioned. So a lot of the disadvantages of playing the big bodies you don't have. So I can see, now that you mention that, I'm really curious to see so you constantly just KO their units, starve them out, and then, like you said, starve them out more than anybody. And eventually, by the time you play a 10 drop, they really can't do much.
10 drop isn't the goal. It was just something I needed to do in the moment because I needed to buy a turn. I think my goal was basically to starve them until I had a really good read of their hand. And I knew like maybe like this 5k would go through, which would open up like now I can potentially go for lethal or set up lethal for next turn. I should mention like something that Perona does really well. She can just swing 5k even if they have a 6k body, like 6k blocker, because you're always threatening the -1 into Ryuma. So like beginning of your turn, it doesn't actually hurt to swing with Perona if they have a 5 cost blocker.
That's really good. And like the fact that people don't know if you do or don't have it, and like if you haven't played it before, and with all your surgery ability, like that is another mind game people need to write.
Yeah. So it's all you can also do it late game too with 8-drop, because like you could just have Ryuma in trash and they're like, oh crap, does he have Moria or Ryuma in hand? So it just it widens at when you have more Dawn.
Nice. So overall, RP Law kind of.
I'd say even. I don't want to say like I beat it, because it is. I think it's best deck in format, or at least close. It can be so aggressive, and you're a 4-life leader. Like if they see the nuts, I think you can't win.
Well, talking about some of the best decks in the format, there's one that I feel like everyone needs to kind of prepare for and like consider. Enel.
I honestly, if you can, just scoop. It's so hard. It's not fun. You have to starve the Enel player basically until your board is set. Let me think. So I've played it now 2 ways. One being pretty aggressive, getting them semi-low and then dropping the big stuff. And then I've played full starve, and that's like full starve until I'm ready to go. Get them to 0 and then try to for lethal the next turn. That the full starve logic is basically to stop them from just Rygoing some big body you played for free. That's because like if you leave them at 4 until late game and you're playing your Morias, you're playing your Dofis, and you're tapping like the Yamatos and stuff like that, right? You're keeping them tapped. They're not going to Rygo you. That'd be insane to give up 3 life just to get rid of 1 body. It's also 3 cards that they don't have access to for pretty much the whole game, and Enel uses life as a resource, so you're basically just denying that until you're ready for them. I think early on, because they might starve you for the first 2 turns. Maybe don't play your Ryuma right off the bat. Play like if you can play a Borsalino, because that way they don't get value off of what's his name, the 5-drop. Gidatsu. Yeah, they don't get Gidatsu value. Just we're all aware of the cards Enel has, but if they high roll you, they hit their big bodies back to back to back. There's not much you can do either. It's a very hard matchup.
Yeah, like it was bad enough they had those big bodies, but to add the rush ability, it makes it very difficult for sure.
Yeah, that's all. I think that's all I can really say about it. It's because there's not really much I can do to tech for it. I could set up a Mountain God. I can set up these bodies that are hard to deal with, but at the end of the day, you still have to fight through Enel's triggers. 4 life. Plus however many more. For however long they're alive. It can get very tough.
I do like how you mentioned, because not a lot of people consider starving and like not swinging at Enel. It's just the fact that you can wait long enough to play your 8 and your 10 drop. Like your 10 drop, I know I used to play Yamato, and every time I place Enel, my 10 drop would just be my lifesaver.
Yeah, so I think this was a discussion that I was having way back in set 5 when people are arguing over Katakuri versus Enel, and I was still trying to make green work. And I was trying to decide, like, what could be good for green, and it came down to if you're playing into because this is when I was playing Uta, right? If you're playing into Katakuri, you want to play 8-cost kid. If you're playing into Enel, you want to play 10 drop. They do very different things, but they are very good in those specific matchups.
No, that makes sense. And what would you rate your overall difficulty level of beating Enel?
It's probably 30-70, but every time I play it, it feels like 20-80.
Yeah, like, man, they have to, as if Enel wasn't strong enough, they have to add the 10 drop ace. Like, come on now.
Yeah.
But I think at the very least, people have an idea of what to do against it. Like the whole starving life, not a lot of people would consider. The playing Borsalinos and starving life, that's crazy. And then eventually, like, at least what I've noticed with Enel is, like, if I set up 3 characters on the board with my leader, leave them at one, like, for me at least, because I'm not Perona, I just have 3 characters on the board, 1 leader, and then like swing like crazy. That works for me. But when you don't have pudding, like against Enel, it's like, oh my gosh, he's got 10 cards in hand. Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Starve him out, play the leaders?
I think, well, if you look at the list for Enel right now, there's a lot of dead cards too. Yeah. So by not swinging, you also deny their ability to like filter. So you'll see them do like Shirahoshi out of hand sometimes. Yeah. Just so that they can get their hand clean. Stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah, that's my thoughts on Enel so far. I'm sure it'll change as the set goes on. But I do get a lot of practice just from the people that play at PR.
Oh yeah, and it's good practice too. So that's
Yeah.
good. All right, now for the flip side, Luchi.
Let me think. So played what, 4 Luchis in tournament. I've beaten 3, lost to 1. I would say the loss to 1 was due to running out of steam towards the end of the game. I basically just didn't see anything, and that was also the game where I had 3 out of 5 of my cards being samurai. So it was I think kind of a low roll. Overall, though, you play it like you play into most black decks. You're able to get a lot of value from Ryuma. Your ability to KO is a lot cheaper, and then both Moria and Luchi, their KO cards tend to be like a 4 or 5 costs. 5 costs, you can get rid of Belmare with Ryuma, and then Ryuma can just get rid of Luchi just off the rip. The leader effect, there's swinging. I guess you could, if you, what I was looking for early was maybe a Borsellino, just so I could, block for free, and then basically just a get out of jail free card early if you don't have anything to remove. Into one of them, I did play Mountain God early. That was pretty good. I think into most black decks, if you can play a 5 cost on turn 2, it gets really awkward now that they don't have Great Eruption. So they're looking for like removal or reducer options, and it can get a little weird for them to get them in the 2 cost range. I feel like, unfortunately, in most black matchups right now, it's just who sees more Moria, or who sees their bigger bodies, like who sees their Sabo, who sees their Moria, who sees their Isho, whatever. That can get pretty rough. I think specifically Isho is actually pretty rough if the Luchi does run it and they play it into you on curve. They're going to rip 2 almost guaranteed, and then it's not 8 cost is kind of hard to remove, because if it's already tapped, it's going to be leader effect plus Toy Soldier into Ryuma, which is doable, but that means they already swung with the 8 cost, which isn't great for you. So yeah, just your ways of removing 8 costs are somewhat limited, at least with my list. With Sabo, it was easier.
Now with Luchi, do you feel like their event, the stage that gets them -2 costs, isn't that really tough for you, or is that like you just play your Borsalinos, or you just play your
Yeah, no, I mean it's really good. I mean it's just another reducer, I guess. I'm trying to remember how many Sabos I played. Well, the 5 cost Sabos. I think what it came down to was I ended up having more top end than him, honestly. That's what I really hate about the black matchups, is who just sees more Moria. And honestly, he played 2, I played 3. And I was able to remove more based off that.
I do like how you're able to draw so many cards, so like seeing your top end's more likely.
Yeah. I know the Luchi players are taking that gamble every time they leader. Just, is that Moria going to trash?
What would you rate it? Like how 50-50?
At the very least 55-45. Very best 60-40. But I'd probably want to play a really, really good Luchi before making that decision. Not to say that everyone I've played back so far isn't good. It's just like I want to get absolutely thrashed just so I know what the very top of Luchi looks like.
Surprisingly enough, a lot of Luchi players play the same thing. I mean, there's some that play like, I don't know if this is a common occurrence. I know that a lot of people are bringing in the 10 drop. I don't know if that's like considered normal, but I know like variance wise, they play pretty much the same list.
Yeah, I've seen the 10 drop one. I've seen stageless Luchi. There's like a few lists out there, but I know the core, which is what I'm kind of basing this off of. But I couldn't say which is the best Luchi, so it's hard for me to say like whether or not it's 60-40 versus 50-50 or something like that. It's definitely pretty good for. It feels good for Perona, I would say.
Nice. Well, here comes a deck that people probably have no idea what. I'm really curious how the matchup is, but we have to talk about it. It is one of the best out there, Black Yellow Luffy.
Okay. Let's see. I played 2. One of them was my friend Dennis. It was in tournament, and he was newer to the deck at the time, but I did win pretty handily. Basically, the goal was to see Belmare and Ryuma in my starting hand, because that's my answer for the 5 drop Luffy. Basically, it's still full starve. You basically build as wide as you can, and then you count swings versus number of life and how many cards you can get based off that, right? So it was Belmare plus Ryuma to KO the first Luffy. The next card he played out, I think, was a Sabo, so I just kind of rested it and swung into it. And I think as Black Yellow, because the Black Yellow is the other deck I main, you do not want to give up cards out of hand. So if your opponent's just resting your stuff, just let it go. So I think Dennis made the correct decision. Just let the Sabo go because he's not going to save it. I'm swinging 6k into it twice. It'd be crazy to save it. So he lets it go, and then I just don't attack him because that'd be I basically just don't want to attack the leader until I'm ready. And I just built a board. I think I didn't even play top in that game. I played 3 Ryumas and a Mountain God.
Oh wow.
No Mountain God. I think no, it was Borsellino. It was 3 Ryumas and a Borsellino that were on my field. And at that point, I knew he didn't have 2Ks because he was unable to get the last 2 cards out of his life out. So it was 1 Borsellino block, or not 1 Sabo blocker and 2 life versus my 5 attacks. And I rested the Sabo and then basically just swung 5k and he took it, which I think was what sealed it. And then I just basically went in with everything else. This is at like 8 or 9 dawn, I forget. But that was kind of how I played the matchup, was like count the swings, get cards out of hand when I can, and then late game would probably be like I have to just outlast him. 10 drop Dofi is really good into Luffy. It'll hit above the number that Luffy will sit at, and then also makes his board that he just summoned pretty useless. So I feel pretty good about playing Dofi in this.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, his main defense just being a high attack and then his blockers, but his main offense is just swinging big. But if he's rested as his leader and he has a Sabo up thinking he's safe, you just Belmare leader ability 10 drop.
Basically.
Not Belmare 10 drop, but like you have the ability to just go right over it. And if he doesn't have counters, which mostly does, he's not like expecting a lot of resting. Like if you rest this and you have a board against him, you just swing like crazy, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's something you could consider doing. Is on your 8 dawn turn, you can set up a Belmare, or 8 or 9 dawn turn, whatever. You set up a Belmare in preparation for your Dofi turn, knowing that you could rest a blocker. That's definitely something to keep into account.
Oh yeah, that 5 cost Luffy. The fact that you can KO it is great because not a lot of decks can. So like, even though you're a green, you have the black ability, so you're able to rest it, KO it. Like, that's great because his plus, I think the character itself with the plus,
it goes up to 8k. Yeah, it's it can be rough if you were trying to swing into it, but just being able to remove it outright is exactly what you need to do. So Ryuma's super good for that.
So with that said, like, I mean, I imagine this matchup's like 60-40.
I don't know about 60-40. I want to say at least 55 because I think PR has freaking like Phil. I know Dennis is getting really good at black yellow. It can be pretty scary. Those guys are really good at black yellow. I should also mention Conrad. He's been beating my ass in the black yellow mirror. So those guys are really good black yellows. I wouldn't just take Perona into it thinking that I'm going to win. Those guys will get around it.
Yeah, I mean, even Sam plays that, and he's like a champion. Like he's
For sure.
But that means better practice for you and more chances for you to showcase your Perona ability.
Yeah.
So this next segment is something that I enjoy just because, sometimes you run into these wild matchups. You don't expect it. It happens. And you're like, oh, crap, what do I do? So I want to just do like a quick shotgun round of the other leaders that are out there and just like a quick sentence what you would do against them.
Okay.
Odin.
Man, I don't even know what's...
He plays this 5-cost Ezo.
Yeah, it's 5 drops.
Yeah.
I would imagine because it's a 6k leader, it'd actually be pretty tough. It would probably depend on how well I'm able to remove. I know Izo's played. I know Denjiro's played. So it depends on my ability to get rid of like his high value 5 drops because he doesn't have protection for it at least.
That's true. Zoro.
I just gut instinct. I think that Zoro would probably beat the crap out of Perona. Either Zoro or older format Zoro, whatever you want to do. I think that he's aggressive enough that Perona would have some serious problems.
Okay, but like, if you had to like find the win strategy against him, what would it be? I guess rest his small bodies, swing at his small bodies, like.
Yeah, it would definitely be. You can rest the small bodies and whatnot, but Perona doesn't have the ability to go wide enough to actually like deal with if the Zoro sets up 3 swings and goes for it. I don't know if Perona would be able to get rid of all of them.
Makes sense. Yeah. Especially as a 4-life leader.
Yeah, it'd be scary.
Okay, so this next one is actually making a resurgence. It's actually been winning regionals. And how would you face against Red Queen Law?
Let me think. I think I played, Vana. I played Vana friendly. We started a game. I don't think we ever finished it, but I would imagine, you're able. It's 5 costs, so as long as I'm seeing Ryumas and I'm able to build like Ryumas to carry me into the late game. Late game will just be, still Moria, and Moria's playing out Ryumas and whatnot. It shouldn't be too bad. I would hope, because it's still a black deck into red green law, and that theoretically sounds successful. But you're also a green deck playing into red green law, so that also is pretty traumatizing. You're gonna green did not do too well into law. 10-drop Dofi, I feel like is pretty useless here. If I'd be so happy with the Sabo in this matchup, but yeah, I think with the way my list is built, it'd be more of an uphill battle if I didn't see.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I know that some red green lawns are running. I don't know about the top end. I didn't really study like some of the newer lists, but
Mhm.
I know like some people have the Supernova Luffy that you cannot KO any other character like this if they're 3 costs or less. Or...
It's yeah, but you since we're KOing at 4 and we're resting at 4, it shouldn't be an issue, because even if you are just using leader effect to rest and not even KO, you can still swing into it. You can get cards out of Law's hand.
All right, sounds good. And plus, like his blockers are 5 costs, so that just goes over your whole Belmare strategy.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole plan. Maybe it doesn't work out, but that's shotgun. That's just what I think.
Okay. I'm gonna skip over some leaders that are just not as prevalent. Just like leaders we can like expect, kind of.
Yeah, sure.
Newgate.
Let's see. He gets pretty aggressive with the rush. You could probably get rid of a few with Ryuma. It depends on if you're able to remove his early board, and then also, because Ryuma's a 6K, Saba's a 6K. If you're able to get at least a few things on board to like clap back with, I think it wouldn't be that bad. Especially because 10-drop is really good into Newgate.
Oh yeah. 10-drop is so good against him. I think I agree with you. Like you have the ability to have these blockers. You have the ability to rest his aggression. His characters can still be KO'd with your combination. So I like that. And plus,
Yeah.
if they're swinging with rush, let's say you minus the cost. They're already rested, so you just minus cost.
Yeah. I was about to say that you don't actually need Belmare in this situation, because it's the rush card, so you just -1.
All right. So we're gonna skip back. I wanna talk about all these leaders, but let's just talk about what our audience could really expect.
Yeah.
Skip. So sad. Oh, RP Luffy. In fact, our last video on RP Luffy had 2.5k views, and I think there's gonna be some players who play this, especially my friend Killer. But what do you think about this matchup?
Right off the bat, I think if they choose first, you get to KO Zorojuro on curve if you find your Ryuma, which means no early ramp there. Honestly, I feel like RP Luffy lives and dies on whether or not he can ramp to 10 early, which you theoretically should be able to stop with leader effect, right?
Yeah.
Just by itself, because you can swing into it even if you don't have Ryuma. So aside from that, if they are able to see their top end and they don't break out, because I've played, I was a huge fan of RP Luffy. I think it's a really cool leader, but it feels really high rolly. So I don't know. Depends on the day for the RP Luffy, I guess.
Mm. Yeah, like they probably hate facing Peronas just because like they don't have the Dawn ramp at all. So like crap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not really prevalent, but just for the heck of it.
If it was film and they play 8 cost, you lose. If it's just film or something, I don't know. If it's film plus Dofi, I think it's winnable. If it's 8, I think any green deck that's running 8 cost right now will probably beat up a Perona. I won't lie. I don't really know any other version of Doflamingo that's going to be successful, so hard to say.
Yeah. Good to know. In fact, out of curiosity, it seems like a lot of your matchups kind of will be better with the Sabo. There's no better build than this. Would you say like the Sabo? Would you consider Sabo in this, or probably not?
Oh, the 8 costs?
Yeah.
Yeah, I originally did. It's just Enel is so unwinnable, and PR has so many Enels that I have to run Dofi. That's the only reason.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think if it's the Wano version, I would do all right. If it's If it's Fortress Yam, you lose just because of 8 cost and 10 cost. There's too much value there. I think this was actually a bad matchup in '06, if I remember correctly, because Perona does not have an answer for if Yamato sees the early banish plays. If they swing big and then they basically play it like they did in Tasaka's, right, where Dawn up, swing double attack, Dawn up, swing double attack. It can be pretty hard for the.
Okay, sounds good. We're going to scroll down to a specific leader that I feel like everybody kind of needs to prepare for. Nami.
I am pretty bad at this matchup because I don't know how to play into Namis. My general strategy is go wide, swing big with a few characters, and then see how the Nami player reacts. If they take it, I will pass. If they don't take it, and they use all their Dawn to counter out of like maybe an 11k swing from a Moria, then I'll go in with all the the rest of my board. So Ryuma, leader, whatever else I've played at that. But honestly, I feel like with most decks playing into Nami, if the Nami sees the nuts, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna say just because I've seen Phil play it and his blue yellow ace is very scary. Yeah, that's about all I have to say about that. The deck itself very scary, and I think the resources involved to get rid of that many 5 costs in a row probably would be too much for Perona.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, let's scroll down to a particular leader that is probably, it's a possibility. 8 matches, 10 matches. You might see a purple Luffy.
Okay, so this actually, I am very knowledgeable on. This was my main deck in 05. Played a ton of it. I want to say because of Purple Luffy's ability to get to 10 Dawn so quickly and then play very oppressive cards once they're at 10 Dawn, it very well could beat Perona. If you hit God Curve, so let's just say 4-drop vanilla, Poly into double 5-drops, Kaido, whatever they want, I think there's not really a way for Perona to do that because by the time you're at 10, Perona's going to be at 6 Dawn. They can't even play a Moria yet. So let's just say worst case scenario, right? You play 4-drop vanilla, they Ryuma it, then you play Poly to KO the Ryuma, and then the Perona player has to somehow deal with that. It's still a 5-drop, right? So they have to use a resource to get it to 4, and then afterwards play 2 more 5-drops. They just go wide. Perona can't deal with it.
Yeah,
I would say losing. That's that's just my off the top of my head opinion.
If there was any way to beat it, how would you beat it?
Sabo, I think. I think if we were looking at, I would treat it closer to like RP Law, where you want to remove more than one thing a turn. So I would play Sabos. That's pretty easy because you just do minus one with leader, and then play the Sabo out, KO 2 things right there. My deck currently just isn't teched for it, but if I knew I was going to be seeing Purple Luffy, there's definitely things you could do.
All right, sounds good. Well, good news is you're not going to see a lot of them. So
yeah.
Okay, we're near the end. I know that we covered some leaders here. It's Moria,
I think similar. You take a similar mindset into this as you would Luchi. You try. I mean, it does come down to I think how many Morias you can drop, but also if you're able to remove some of their early plays to remove pressure off yourself, that can be really good. Yeah, I don't think the matchup has changed so much since 06. You basically just can outvalue them over time, and when you get to the big bodies, yours tend to be superior because you go Moria into Doflamingo.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think I was playing Moria when you beat me too.
Were you on Moria or were you on Luchi? I forget.
No, I did not play. I haven't actually played Luchi yet.
Oh yeah, you were on Moria. Yeah, okay.
I'm trying. Like, this is my suffering, man. Like, I play off meta leaders just for content, but like, I'm glad I meet people like you who are like playing some non-top 5, top 4 leaders.
For sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, we might as well cover one more yellow, and I know it's not really seen that much, but category.
Yeah. This is still pretty bad. I think. I think at the time. So this is basically what stopped me from playing it in 06 was the prevalence of Katakuri and Enel. I was seriously considering Perona going into 06, but having played the matchup in preparation for the Santa Clara regional, I basically just said I threw my hands up. I just said I gotta play something else. Katakuri, like 10 mom is basically impossible to stop. 8 cost Katakuri puts your Moria in life. Up until that point, I think there. See, my only knowledge of this is like early '06. It's hard for me to say, what Katakuris are we even running right now. I don't. Do they run Ace? They might,
I
but
mean, it's like not really represented, but they could,
yeah,
like, but not for. I mean, if they did, it's pretty much the same list practically.
yeah. Gut reaction, it's still pretty hard because if you're dealing with 7 mom, Katakuri, and 10 mom, like those bodies are way too big for you to deal with just Ryuma.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. All right, yeah, no, so we covered a lot of the meta picks. Now, it seems like, kind of based upon what we're talking about, we can have, like, this deck list seems very good into, some of the current meta leaders, but if you were to make any changes to it, I'm guessing, like you mentioned the A-Cost Sabo, if people wanted it, like, if they thought, okay, Enel, we're just going to assume that's a loss, or we're just going to try to avoid Enels, or let's say their local doesn't really have play Enels, or etc. To replace the 10 drops with 8 drop Sabos?
Yeah, I think that's pretty safe. I think Isho is another contender for that spot. So if for your top end spots, Moria is a must. So just keep 4 Moria. 4 Doflamingo that can be interchanged with your other top ends. There's a lot of black yellow Luffy. I'd go Isho. Isho rips 2 cards out of the black yellow's hands and doesn't need to interact for you to get value. You just put 1 Dawn on him and then you can remove other things or keep maybe a Sabo tapped or something like that. The other option, Sabo, like you said, just insanely good value into RP Law, to Bonnie, I think, into both Luchi and Moria, the other decks you might see, and then also Dofi for sure.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you probably want to be playing Perona into a regional, and I understand that because you mentioned, like, again, some of the meta leaders, they're just so good that it just seems really difficult to kind of counter it. Like, in particular, like the Enels or like the Dofis or like a lot of those. But it seems like the way you've been playing this, you've been kind of like, you're fighting to get the even match. You're fighting for 50-50. You're fighting for 45-65. Would you say, like, Perona, what could make Perona the top dog? Is there any way to make it, or is this kind of like the top end?
If I had less to, I think goes for any '07 deck. Like maybe if there's like one less meta matchup or something like that, or if if Enel didn't exist, I think that I'd be able to tech more harder for matchups that I know are going to be rougher or at least even. Just to give myself the edge there. I think that that'd be good. Also, just the way my mental, I always just look at everything as like an uphill. It might not be that. Yeah, I think Perona for me was like kind of a project because I really enjoyed the color combo. So play what you want, make it work if you can, or like that was kind of my attitude. Is like I want to have fun in '07 because like I was a little deck lost. I wasn't sure what I wanted to play. There were so many options. So I just picked what like I thought looked fun, and I thought Samurai looked really fun. So that's why that's what I did.
And the funny thing about this is, like, you know how you can rest the characters and draw 2 cards? It's
Yeah.
almost like all these characters are your samurai,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, Alex, thank you again so much for your time. It was a pleasure playing you in locals. It's a pleasure talking about your deck. You've really kind of opened the doors to what Perona can do. So again, appreciate you. I appreciate your time. And do you want to do any shout outs, or, I know you mentioned you're not really big on, like, social media and all that, but like,
Yeah, shout out to Perfect Rares, hosting Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday. So if you're in the SoCal area, go play there. Sam's awesome. He's the owner. And yeah, maybe I'll see you guys at a local.
Well, sounds good, Alex. Thank you again so much. I hope you have a great night.